My name is Alyssa Graziano, and I'm going to talk to you today about a little bit of my research. Well, I don't know about you, but I like to be outside. I like to swim, I like to fish and boat and hike near mountain streams, and I just like to spend time outside. Have you ever been enjoying a day on the river and seen a fish jump? Have you ever wondered what in the world it's doing, or why it's doing that? Well, I'm trying to find out. Jumping performance is a topic of growing importance in fish physiological and management research. So my study aimed to find whether or not the amount of fish in an area make them jump in order to create optimal laboratory conditions to study jumping performance in the future. In this brief presentation, I'm going to discuss the background, my experiment, the results, and the implications for the future of my study. Here in Colorado, we're known for our trout, but in actuality, we only have one native trout. This is the cutthroat trout. There are 4 Colorado subspecies: the Colorado River cutthroat, the greenback cutthroat trout, which is our state fish, the Rio Grande cutthroat trout, and the yellowfin cutthroat trout, which is actually extinct. All of the remaining subspecies of these cutthroat trout are either threatened or endangered, which makes them a real species of concern here in Colorado because we like to protect our nature. Even though we do have more trout species, which we commonly catch when we're fishing, like rainbow trout and brook trout and brown trout, these species are not native here. They threaten our native cutthroat trout populations. This is especially true for brook trout, who outcompete, replace, and actually make cutthroat trout leave their habitats. And this is all causing them to have population declines throughout the state. This brings me to artificial barriers. Artificial barriers are very important in fish movement and dispersal. They can be a really great method of protecting fish like the cutthroat trout and keeping unwanted species out of native fish habitat. The way these barriers are designed is through jumping performance studies, which is what I did. So, my experiment. Our question was, does fish density, or in our case, the amount of fish that were stocked in each tank, affect the number of times a fish will jump? We hypothesized that the more fish there are, there would be more jumps. We hypothesized this because trout are territorial species, and we thought that maybe they were jumping to disperse and move out of the way of other larger, more territorial fish. I took a bunch of 10-centimeter juvenile cutthroat trout, and they were loaded into artificial waterfalls at different densities. We tested them at different densities to see if there would be an effect and if the higher densities would show more jumping attempts than the smaller densities. So there were 10 trials for each density, and the number of jumps was counted for each density at the end of the trial. The data was analyzed using linear regression to evaluate the relationship between fish density and jumping attempts. Once the data was collected and the experiment was over, the data was analyzed, again using linear regression, so we could evaluate the relationships between density and jumping attempts. What we found was that there was no significant effect of density on individual fish jumping attempts, which suggests that our hypothesis that more fish would cause the fish to jump was null or incorrect. There was, however, a significant effect of density on overall jumping attempts. This means that the more fish you put in a tank, the more jumping attempts you will have, which seems like common sense, but when you use the scientific method, it's a little more than that. So, what does this mean, or why is this important? Well, future fish jumping performance studies can use the maximum number of fish allowable in their research in order to get maximum number of jumps. This is really important because a lot of fish jumping studies are in a short time, and you need the maximum data you can get in a short amount of time to be able to study things like maximum jumping height or jumping performance in the dark, or jumping performance in different temperatures. And these are all used to build barriers that are actually out in the field, and there are some in Colorado right now that can keep a lot of unwanted and invasive species out of native fish habitat. So by jumping performance studies, not only in Colorado but all over the nation, we can help to protect our endangered species and protect the habitat for our native fish. Thank you.